Hello everyone, my name is Jan Hong. I am from Vietnam, and this is part 3 of the 1000 Why questions in life. Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you very much. Let's start with a big one. Why do I fear being alone? This fear is so common, and it often drives our actions without us even realizing it. It's the quiet anxiety that creeps in when the house is empty, the frantic need to fill our calendars. This fear can stem from early experiences, societal pressure, or the simple human need for connection. We're wired to be social creatures, but when this fear becomes overwhelming, it can lead us to make choices that aren't truly good for us. It can make us settle for less than we deserve, just to avoid the silence. The first step is to acknowledge this fear, to sit with it, and to understand that being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. Paradoxically, while we fear being alone, many of us also ask, why do I fear intimacy? It seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? We want connection, yet we push it away. This fear of intimacy is really a fear of vulnerability. It's the fear of being seen for who we really are, flaws and all. This leads to our next question. Why do I avoid emotional exposure? Revealing our deepest thoughts and feelings can feel like standing naked in a crowded room. We worry that if people see the real us, they might not like what they find. They might judge us, misunderstand us, or worse, use our vulnerabilities against us. So what do? We hide. We ask, why do I hide my true feelings? We put on a mask, a brave face. We say I'm fine when we're falling apart. We laugh when we want to cry. Hiding our feelings is a survival mechanism. Maybe we learned it in childhood, where expressing emotions was seen as a weakness or wasn't safe. We build walls around our hearts, brick by brick, until we are living in a fortress of our own making. And inside that fortress we ask, why do I fear being fully known? Being truly known by another person is one of the most profound human experiences. But it also means giving them the power to hurt us. It's a huge risk. We fear that if someone knows everything about us, our quirks, our insecurities, our past mistakes, they will eventually leave. And that brings us to one of the deepest, most primal fears of all. Why do I fear being abandoned? This fear can be all-consuming. It's the monster under the bed for many adults. It can originate from childhood loss, neglect, or inconsistent care. This fear whispers that we are not enough, that we are fundamentally unlovable, and that everyone we care about will eventually walk away. This terror of abandonment can explain so many of our seemingly irrational behaviors in relationships. For instance, it answers the question, why do I cling to unhealthy relationships? When the fear of being alone is greater than the pain of a bad situation, we stay. We convince ourselves that a toxic connection is better than no connection at all. We tell ourselves it's not that bad, or that things will get better. This is also why we ask, why do I tolerate disrespect? We lower our standards. We accept behavior we know is wrong because we're terrified of the alternative, being left. The voice of fear tells us, this is the best you can get. Don't risk it. And that leads to an even more painful question. Why do I stay where I'm unloved? This is a heartbreaking reality for many. Staying in a place with a person where love is absent or has faded. It might be because of shared history, financial dependence, or the simple, devastating hope that one day love will magically reappear. But often it's because we've confused something else for love, which makes us wonder, why do I confuse attachment with love? Attachment can feel like love. It has the intensity, the need, the fear of loss. But attachment is often rooted in fear and dependency, while true love is rooted in freedom, respect, and growth. Attachment says, I can't live without you. Love says, I choose to live with you, and I want you to be your best self, even if that's not with me. Recognizing this difference is a massive step toward emotional health. To feel secure, we often look outward. Why do I seek validation from others? We want to be told we're smart, attractive, successful, and worthy. We post our lives on social media, waiting for the likes and comments to roll in, each one a tiny hit of approval. We rely on others to tell us our worth because we haven't learned how to find it within ourselves. Our self-esteem becomes a fragile thing, completely dependent on the opinions of others. This external focus makes us incredibly vulnerable. It's why we ask, why do I fear rejection more than dishonesty? We would rather lie or be lied to than face the sting of being turned away. We become people pleasers, saying yes when we mean no, agreeing when we disagree, all to avoid that terrible feeling of rejection. This behavior has a high cost. It leads to the question, why do I abandon myself to keep others? We silence our own needs, our own dreams, our own voices, to make someone else comfortable, to make them stay. We become a chameleon, changing our colors to fit in, losing sight of who we truly are in the process. We start to ask, why do I compromise my values for belonging? That deep human need to be part of a tribe can be so powerful that we're willing to betray our own principles. We might laugh at a joke we find offensive or stay silent in the face of injustice, just to be accepted by the group. Each compromise chips away at our integrity and self-respect. Often at the heart of this people-pleasing is another fear. Why do I fear conflict? Many of us are taught that conflict is bad, that it means the relationship is failing. We tiptoe around sensitive subjects, swallow our frustrations, and avoid disagreements at all costs. We think we're keeping the peace, but what we're actually doing is building up resentment and preventing real connection. This fear of conflict is why we ask, why do I avoid honest conversations? We avoid the we need to talk moments like the plague. We'd rather live with a problem than risk the discomfort of addressing it head on. But real relationships aren't built on avoiding problems. They're built on the trust that you can navigate them together. Avoiding conflict means we also suppress our own desires. Why do I suppress my needs? We tell ourselves our needs are not important, that they are a burden to others. We become experts at ignoring our own hunger, our own exhaustion, our own longing for support. We convince ourselves it's noble to be low maintenance, but a person without needs is not a person. It's a ghost. Suppressing our needs doesn't make them go away. It just ensures they'll never be met. And then we get resentful when others don't magically know what we need. This leads to a classic relational trap. Why do I expect others to complete me? We've all heard the phrase, you complete me, in movies, but in reality, it's a recipe for disaster. It puts an impossible pressure on our partners and friends. No one can fill the empty spaces within you. That is your job. Looking for a better half implies that you are incomplete on your own, but you are already whole. A healthy relationship is not about two halves making a whole. It's about two whole individuals choosing to share their journey. This brings us to the final and perhaps most crucial set of questions. Why do I fear emotional independence? And its twin, why do I fear standing alone emotionally? After a lifetime of looking for validation, avoiding conflict, and seeking completion in others, the idea of being emotionally self-reliant can be terrifying. It means taking full responsibility for our own happiness, our own validation, and our own emotional regulation. It means learning to soothe ourselves when we're upset, to celebrate ourselves when we succeed, and to sit with our own uncomfortable feelings without immediately needing someone else to fix them. Standing alone emotionally doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means building a strong inner foundation so that your relationships can be a choice, not a necessity. It means you connect with others from a place of fullness, not emptiness. It's the freedom to be authentically you, knowing that your worth is not up for debate. It's knowing that even if you were to lose everything and everyone, you would still have you. And you are enough. These questions are not easy. They dig deep into our fears and our pain, but asking them is the first step toward healing. It's about turning on the light in those dark corners of our hearts and seeing what's really there. It's a journey from fear to freedom, from dependence to wholeness. It is the brave work of building a life where you are not afraid to be alone, and therefore you are finally free to truly connect. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive today. I hope these questions have sparked some valuable reflection for you. Remember, this is a journey, not a race. Be kind to yourself. If you found this helpful, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. We'll continue our exploration in the next part of our series. Until then, take care. Let's begin with a question many of us have whispered to ourselves in the quiet moments after a breakup or a fight. Why do I always attract the same dynamics? It feels like we're starring in the same movie, just with a different cast. This isn't a coincidence, it's a pattern. And that leads to the next question. Why do I repeat these relational patterns? It's like being stuck in a loop. We promise ourselves never again, yet we find ourselves right back where we started. Often these patterns are learned in our earliest relationships, long before we even knew what love was supposed to look like. Our subconscious mind seeks what's familiar, even if that familiarity is painful. This brings us to a critical point. Why do I ignore red flags? You see them, right? That little voice in your head screams a warning, but you brush it aside. You might even find yourself romanticizing the pain. Why do we do that? Why do we romanticize pain and normalize dysfunction? Sometimes we've been taught that love is supposed to be hard, a constant struggle. We might have seen this in our parents' relationship or in the movies we grew up watching. We start to believe that chaos and drama are signs of passion, not signs of a problem. This is how we begin to confuse intensity with genuine connection. A healthy, stable relationship might feel boring by comparison, leading us to ask, why do I fear healthy love? The calm can feel unsettling when you're used to a storm. This fear can manifest in destructive ways. Why do I sabotage good relationships? The moment things start to feel safe and secure, we might pick a fight, create distance, or find a reason to run. It's a self-protective mechanism, ironically. If we end it first, we can't be abandoned. This is closely tied to another fear. Why do I fear stability? Stability means letting your guard down, trusting someone else, and believing you are worthy of peace. For some, this is more terrifying than any argument. The underlying belief? Love is associated with suffering. Why do I associate love with suffering? If our past experiences have taught us that love equals hurt, then our brain is wired to expect it. We brace for impact even when there's no collision in sight. This constant state of defense is exhausting and keeps true intimacy at bay. And what's at the heart of intimacy? Vulnerability. So why do I avoid vulnerability? Being truly seen, with all our imperfections and insecurities, is one of the most courageous things we can do, but it feels risky. We worry that if someone sees the real us, they'll leave. This fear is a massive barrier to connection. It makes it hard to express our needs. Why do I fear expressing my needs? We might tell ourselves that our needs are too much, that we're being demanding or high maintenance. So we stay silent, we hide our boundaries, or we don't set them at all. Why do I hide my boundaries? Because we fear the reaction. We fear conflict, we fear rejection, we fear being disliked. This fear of disapproval leads directly to the next question. Why do I fear saying no? Saying no to others often feels like we're saying no to being loved or accepted. So instead, we say yes to things that drain us, that go against our values, that make us feel small. This is where the pattern of overgiving comes in. Why do I overgive? We pour everything we have into others, our time, our energy, our love, hoping that if we give enough, we will finally be worthy of receiving love in return. But it doesn't work that way. It just leads to exhaustion and resentment. And on the flip side, why do I underreceive? We deflect compliments, we downplay our achievements, and we refuse help. We don't know how to simply accept kindness and support without feeling like we have to immediately pay it back. This is because we're afraid to ask for what we need. Why do I fear asking? We believe we should be able to handle everything on our own, that needing help is a sign of weakness. Underneath all of these questions are two profound, deeply human fears that wrestle with each other inside of us. The first is, why do I fear being too much? We shrink ourselves down, quiet our voices, and hide our brilliance because we're afraid of taking up too much space, of being overwhelming. We're scared that our full, authentic self is simply too much for others to handle. And at the exact same time, we grapple with its opposite. Why do I fear not being enough? This is the nagging voice that says we're not smart enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough. It's a constant feeling of falling short, of never quite measuring up to an invisible standard. And what's the result of being caught between these two fears? We start to measure our worth through others. Why do I measure my worth through others? We look for validation in their eyes, their approval, their social media likes. Our sense of self becomes a reflection of what other people think of us, rather than something solid and stable that comes from within. We give away our power. Our self-esteem rises and falls with every compliment or criticism, every text message returned or ignored. It's an exhausting and unsustainable way to live. The journey to breaking these cycles begins with awareness. It starts by asking these why questions, not with judgment, but with curiosity and compassion for yourself. Each question is a doorway to deeper self-understanding. Recognizing these patterns is the first, most powerful step toward changing them. It's about learning to source your worth from within, to build a foundation of self-love so strong that it can't be shaken by who comes into or leaves your life. It's about unlearning the lie that love must hurt, and instead learning that you are worthy of a love that is safe, stable, and deeply nourishing. This work isn't easy, but it is the most rewarding work you will ever do. If these questions resonate with you, remember that seeking support from a therapist or counselor can provide you with tools and a safe space to explore these patterns. You don't have to navigate this journey alone. Let's start with the big one. Why do I fear solitude? For so many of us, being alone feels unsettling, like something is missing. This fear often drives us into relationships. But what happens when we get there? We might find ourselves asking, why do I avoid myself in relationships? It's a strange paradox, isn't it? We seek connection to escape being alone, but then we hide from our own thoughts and feelings within that connection. This can lead to another common struggle. Why do I lose myself in others? You start to adopt their hobbies, their opinions, their dreams, until one day you look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. You're playing a part, not living your life. This brings up the question, why do I perform roles instead of being real? We become the perfect partner, the easygoing friend, the supportive family member, all while our true self is tucked away, afraid to come out. And why are we so afraid? Often it boils down to this. Why do I fear emotional honesty? Being truly open means being vulnerable. It means showing the messy, imperfect parts of ourselves, and that's terrifying. We ask ourselves, why do I fear showing weakness? In a world that often praises strength and self-sufficiency, revealing our struggles can feel like admitting defeat. This creates a push and pull with dependence. On one hand, we wonder, why do I fear emotional dependence? We don't want to be a burden or seem needy. But on the other hand, we also ask, why do I fear emotional independence? The idea of standing completely on our own 2 feet, without anyone to lean on, can be just as scary. It's this constant teeter-totter, this internal conflict, that makes us ask, why do I struggle to balance closeness and autonomy? We want to be deeply connected, but we also want to be our own person. Finding that sweet spot is one of the greatest challenges in any relationship. When we can't find that balance, a new fear emerges. Why do I fear true intimacy? True intimacy isn't just physical. It's about being seen, truly seen for who we are, flaws and all. When that feels too intense, we resort to defense mechanisms. We start to wonder, why do I keep emotional distance? We build walls, create space, and use sarcasm or intellectualism to keep people from getting too close to our heart. This fear of getting too close is deeply tied to another question. Why do I fear commitment? Committing means choosing one path, one person, and letting go of all other possibilities. It's a huge leap of faith, and for many, that leap feels like jumping off a cliff without a parachute. We're not just afraid of making the wrong choice. We're often paralyzed by the very act of choosing. What's hiding beneath all these fears? Often it's an even deeper, more primal fear. Why do I fear abandonment even when I'm in a safe and loving relationship? This fear can be a ghost from our past, a wound that never fully healed. It whispers doubts in our ear, telling us that no matter how good things are now, it's only a matter of time before we're left alone again. This persistent fear of abandonment poisons our ability to trust. It makes us ask, why do I mistrust love? We see it as a temporary high, a beautiful illusion that's bound to shatter. We start to scan for cracks, for evidence that our fears are justified. We begin to live in a state of anxious anticipation, constantly asking, "Why do I expect loss?" Instead of enjoying the present moment, we're already mourning a future that hasn't even happened. When you expect loss, you start preparing for it. Why do I prepare for heartbreak? It's a form of self-protection. We think that if we anticipate the pain, it will hurt less when it comes. We might pull away first or sabotage the relationship, all to have a sense of control over the inevitable ending we've already written in our minds. It's a tragic, self-fulfilling prophecy. You expect to be hurt, so you act in ways that push love away, and in the end you are left hurt and alone, proving yourself right. This entire cycle of fear and self-sabotage leads us to a fundamental question about our connections. Why do I avoid deep bonds? Deep bonds require trust, vulnerability, and a willingness to be seen. If all our past experiences have taught us that connection leads to pain, it's only natural that we would start avoiding it altogether. We stick to superficial friendships and casual relationships because they feel safer. There's less at stake. This is the essence of another crucial question. Why do I fear attachment? We've come to associate attachment with pain. We think of it as a chain that will eventually be broken, leaving us wounded. So we resist. We tell ourselves we're independent, that we don't need anyone. But this is often a defense mechanism, a shield to protect a very fragile heart. But here's the final complex twist in this story. Even as we fear attachment, we also face the opposite struggle. Why do I fear letting go? And why do I hold on too long? We might stay in a relationship that has long since expired, clinging to the comfort of the familiar, even if it's a familiar pain. The idea of navigating the unknown, of being truly alone again, can be so terrifying that we choose to stay in a situation that no longer serves us. We hold on to the wreckage because we're afraid of the open sea. These questions don't have easy answers. They are deep, personal, and they touch the very core of our being. Exploring them isn't about finding blame or simple solutions. It's about understanding. It's about bringing compassion to the parts of ourselves that are scared and hurting. By asking why, we begin the journey of healing the wounds that make love and connection feel so frightening. We start to learn how to be with ourselves so we can learn how to be with others in a healthier, more authentic way. If these questions resonate with you, know that you are not alone in asking them. This is part of the human experience. If you're struggling deeply with these feelings, talking to a friend, a family member, or a mental health professional can provide support and guidance. You don't have to navigate this alone. Have you ever found yourself asking, "Why do I struggle to say goodbye?" It's a universal feeling, right? That difficulty in letting go. This ties directly into a deeper question. Why do I fear endings? Whether it's the end of a movie, a vacation, a friendship, or a chapter in our lives, endings can feel like a small death. They represent the unknown, a step away from the comfort of the familiar. We cling to what we know because the future without it feels uncertain and scary. This fear of endings is often the root of why we struggle with goodbyes. We're not just saying goodbye to a person or a situation. We're saying goodbye to the part of ourselves that existed within that context. This fear of endings leads us to another set of questions. Why do I avoid grief? And why do I avoid mourning? Grief is the natural, healthy response to loss. It's the emotional process that allows us to heal. But so many of us are taught to be strong, to push through, to not let our sadness show. We avoid mourning because we've been conditioned to believe it's a sign of weakness. We see it as something to get over as quickly as possible, rather than a necessary journey to go through. This avoidance isn't strength. It's a barrier we build against our own healing. And what is at the core of avoiding grief? It's the question, why do I fear emotional pain? Pain hurts. It's that simple. Our brains are wired to avoid it. But emotional pain, like physical pain, is a signal. It's telling us something needs attention, that something is broken and needs mending. When we consistently avoid this pain, we're not solving the problem. We're just letting the wound fester. This fear of pain makes us suppress our feelings, leading us to ask, why do I suppress sadness? We push it down, hoping it will disappear. We tell ourselves to cheer up, to look on the bright side, but all we're really doing is invalidating our own genuine experience. Sadness is a valid and vital human emotion. It's what gives joy its meaning. By suppressing it, we numb ourselves not just to the lows, but to the highs as well. And what's the physical manifestation of sadness? Tears. This brings us to, why do I fear tears? Crying is a physical release, a way for our bodies to process overwhelming emotion. Yet we often feel ashamed to cry, especially in front of others. We see it as a loss of control. We fear the vulnerability that comes with letting our guard down. We worry about what others will think, that they'll see us as fragile or unstable. But tears aren't a sign of weakness. They're a sign of being human, of feeling deeply. This avoidance of raw emotion culminates in a broader question. Why do I avoid emotional depth? Skimming the surface of life can feel safer. It's less messy, less complicated. Going deep means confronting our fears, our insecurities, our past traumas. It requires courage. To avoid this, we become masters of distraction. This is why we ask, why do I distract instead of feel? We scroll through our phones, binge watch shows, work excessively, or seek out constant social activity. Anything to avoid sitting with our own uncomfortable feelings. These distractions are a temporary anesthetic, but the feeling we're avoiding is still there, waiting for us when the noise stops. True peace doesn't come from distraction. It comes from feeling and processing. And what are we really running from? It's the emotional truth. Why do I fear emotional truth? Because the truth can be painful. The truth might be that a relationship is over, that we made a mistake, that we're not happy where we are. Facing this truth means we have to change, and change is hard. It's easier to live in a comfortable lie than to face a difficult truth that demands action. But living in denial keeps us stuck, preventing us from growing and finding genuine happiness. This internal struggle to avoid our own feelings has a massive impact on our external world, on our relationships. It leads us to ask, why do I avoid being present with others? If we're not present with ourselves, how can we be fully present with someone else? Our minds are elsewhere, replaying the past, worrying about the future, or busy suppressing an emotion. We're physically in the room, but our essence, our attention, is gone. People can feel this. They can sense when we're not really there with them. This lack of presence creates a profound sense of isolation, which leads to one of the most painful paradoxes of modern life. Why do I feel lonely even around people? You can be in a crowded room and feel completely alone. This happens when the connections are superficial. We're talking, but we're not truly connecting. We're surrounded by bodies, but we don't feel seen or understood on a deeper level. This loneliness isn't about the absence of people. It's about the absence of genuine connection. So why do we settle for this? Why do I fear real connection? Because real connection requires vulnerability. It requires us to take off the masks we wear and show someone our true selves, flaws and all. We fear that if someone sees the real us, they won't like what they see. They might reject us, abandon us, or hurt us. So we keep our guard up, and in doing so, we block the very connection we crave. This fear of being our true selves makes us avoid authenticity. Why do I avoid authenticity? Being authentic means aligning our actions with our values and feelings, even when it's unpopular or difficult. It's easier to go with the flow, to agree with everyone, to be what we think others want us to be. We avoid authenticity because we believe conformity will keep us safe. Instead of being real, we start performing. This raises the question, why do I perform socially? We put on a show. We craft a persona, the funny one, the smart one, the successful one, that we think will be well received. We say the right things, laugh at the right times, and carefully manage our image. This performance is exhausting. It's a constant effort to maintain a facade, and it reinforces the feeling that our true self isn't good enough. All of this stems from a fundamental fear. Why do I fear being myself around others? We are terrified of being judged. We've learned from a young age that certain behaviors get approval and others get disapproval, so we start editing ourselves. We hide the parts we think are unlovable or weird. Why do I hide parts of me? We tuck away our insecurities, our passions that might be seen as strange, our opinions that might be controversial. We present a curated, edited version of ourselves to the world. This constant self-censorship is driven by the fear of judgment. Why do I fear being judged? The thought of someone scrutinizing us and finding us lacking is terrifying. It taps into our deepest insecurities about our own worth. We crave acceptance, and we believe that judgment is the opposite of that. So we try to be perfect, flawless, and completely agreeable to avoid any criticism. Ultimately, these fears all boil down to two of the most primal human fears. First, why do I fear not belonging? As social creatures, our survival once depended on being part of a tribe. That instinct is still with us. The idea of not fitting in, of not having a group where we belong, feels like a threat to our very existence. We want to be part of something, to feel connected to a community. And the ultimate consequence of not belonging is exclusion. Why do I fear exclusion? Being pushed out, rejected, or ostracized is one of the most painful social experiences a person can have. It confirms our worst fears, that we are not wanted, that we are not worthy of love and connection. So we do everything we can to avoid it. We hide, we perform, we avoid authenticity, all in a desperate attempt to secure our place within the group. But here's the thing. By doing all of this, by avoiding our true feelings and hiding our true selves, we create the very loneliness we are so desperate to avoid. We end up feeling disconnected because we are disconnected from ourselves. The path to genuine connection and a life without that gnawing loneliness isn't about being more perfect or more likable. It's about having the courage to be imperfect, to feel our emotions, and to let ourselves be seen, truly seen, for who we are. It's a scary path, but it's the only one that leads to true belonging. Have you ever found yourself asking, why do I compromise myself just to fit in? It's that feeling when you're in a group and you quiet a part of yourself. You laugh at a joke you don't find funny, or you agree with something that goes against your own beliefs. You might follow that up with, why do I betray my own truth just for a little acceptance? It's a heavy question. We're social creatures, and the desire to belong is wired into us. This pull can be so strong that we sometimes trade our authenticity for a spot in the circle. This leads us to a powerful fear. Why do I fear social isolation so much? The thought of being cast out, of being alone, can be terrifying. It's a primal fear, rooted in our evolutionary need for community to survive. But this fear can keep us in situations that no longer serve us, with people who don't truly see us. We stay, we conform, we shrink ourselves, all to avoid the specter of being alone. It's a cage we often build for ourselves, bar by bar, compromise by compromise. Then there's the flip side of the coin. Why do I fear independence? It's a strange paradox, isn't it? We crave freedom, but the reality of standing completely on our own 2 feet can feel just as daunting as being cast out. Being independent means taking full responsibility, making our own decisions, and facing the consequences alone. It's the weight of that responsibility, the fear of making the wrong choice without a safety net, that can keep us leaning on others, even when it's not healthy. And what about being understood? Why do I fear being misunderstood? This one hits deep. We want to be seen and known for who we truly are, but the gap between our inner world and how others perceive us can feel like a vast chasm. The fear of our words being twisted, our intentions misread, or our character misjudged can make us pull back. It's easier to say nothing or say something safe than to risk putting our true thoughts and feelings out there only to have them fall flat or be misinterpreted. This fear of being misunderstood often leads to a desire for invisibility. We might ask, why do I avoid being seen clearly? Being truly seen means being vulnerable. It means someone gets to see the messy parts, the uncertain parts, the parts we're not so proud of. It's like standing under a bright spotlight. While part of us craves that recognition, another part wants to run and hide in the shadows, where it's safe and no one can judge what they see. To cope, we develop masks. We build entire fortresses to protect our tender hearts. Have you ever asked, why do I hide behind humor? The class clown, the life of the party, the person who always has a witty comeback often, they are using humor as a shield. If you can make them laugh, they won't get too close. They won't see the sadness or the insecurity you're feeling just beneath the surface. Laughter becomes a deflection, a clever way to keep the world at arm's length. Or maybe your mask is different. Why do I hide behind strength? You're the rock, the one everyone depends on. You never complain. You never show weakness. You handle everything. But this performance of invincibility is exhausting. Hiding behind strength means you never get to be the one who's taken care of. You deny yourself the comfort of support because you're terrified of what might happen if you let the facade crumble, if you admit that you, too, need help. And for some of us, the fortress is silence. Why do I hide behind silence? When the world feels too loud, too demanding, or too dangerous, silence can feel like a sanctuary. We retreat inward. We stop sharing our opinions, our feelings, our stories. But this silence is a double-edged sword. While it may protect us from conflict or judgment, it also isolates us. It builds a wall between us and the people who might actually want to connect with the real you. Silence starves connection. All of these behaviors, hiding behind humor, strength, or silence, stem from a central, powerful fear. Why do I fear emotional exposure? To expose your emotions is to hand someone a piece of your soul and trust them not to crush it. It's the ultimate act of vulnerability. Every past hurt, every betrayal, every moment of ridicule teaches us to guard that part of ourselves more fiercely. We learn that emotional exposure can lead to pain, so we decide it's safer to keep it all under lock and key. This leads us to actively avoid situations that might require it. We ask ourselves, why do I avoid emotional risk? We stick to surface-level conversations. We choose partners who are emotionally unavailable because it's a mirror of our own fear. We don't apply for the dream job because what if we fail? We don't say I love you first. Taking an emotional risk means accepting the possibility of getting hurt. And for many of us, the potential pain outweighs the potential reward. This is where the loneliness truly sets in. We make a choice, often unconsciously. Why do I choose loneliness over vulnerability? We sit in our quiet rooms, in our solitary lives, and tell ourselves it's better this way. It's predictable. It's safe. No one can hurt you when you're alone. But this self-imposed isolation comes at a tremendous cost. We trade the messy, beautiful, unpredictable dance of human connection for the sterile safety of solitude. It's a cold comfort. We become architects of our own emotional fortresses. You might wonder, why do I protect myself from love? Love is the greatest emotional risk of all. To truly love someone is to be completely and utterly vulnerable. It means giving someone the power to bring you unparalleled joy, but also profound pain. So we sabotage relationships when they get too close. We find fault. We push people away. We build walls not to keep others out, but to keep our own feelings in, convincing ourselves we are protecting our hearts. This fear of love is tied to our fears of interdependence. For instance, why do I fear needing others? In a world that glorifies hyper-independence, needing someone can feel like a weakness. We think we should be able to do it all on our own. To admit we need someone for help, for comfort, for love feels like a failure. It feels like giving up a piece of our power, of our control. So we struggle in silence, refusing to ask for the very thing we might crave the most, support. And then there's the other side of that equation. Why do I fear being needed? This might sound strange, but it's a very real fear. Being needed by someone means responsibility. It means their well-being is, in some way, tied to you. What if you let them down? What if you can't be the person they need you to be? The pressure can feel immense. Fearing this responsibility, we might keep a safe distance, ensuring no one ever becomes too dependent on us. All of this culminates in a general difficulty with intimacy. We ask, why do I struggle with closeness? Closeness is where all these fears converge. It requires vulnerability. It risks misunderstanding. It involves needing and being needed. It's the very thing we're wired to seek, yet it's the very thing our past hurts have taught us to fear. We might crave closeness in theory, but when it starts to become a reality, our internal alarms go off, and we retreat to what feels safe. This brings us back to that core paradox of dependence and independence. Why do I fear dependence? We fear losing ourselves, our identity, our autonomy in another person. We fear becoming so intertwined that we can't function on our own. The fear of being controlled or smothered is powerful. But at the same time, we ask again, why do I fear independence? We fear the loneliness, the burden of total self-reliance, the emptiness of having no one to share life with. We are caught in a push and pull between these two fundamental fears. And so we stand at the edge of the deepest water, asking, why do I fear true connection? Not the surface-level chatter, but the real soul-to-soul stuff. The kind of connection where you are seen and accepted, flaws and all. We fear it because it demands that we dismantle all the walls we've so carefully built. It requires us to be naked, emotionally speaking, and trust that we won't be left cold and alone. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate question in this domain. Why do I fear loving fully? To love with your whole heart, without reservation, without holding anything back, is the bravest thing a person can do. It is the peak of emotional risk and the height of human experience. We fear it because the fall from that height is a long way down. But maybe, just maybe, the view from the top is worth the risk. These questions don't have easy answers. They are here to guide you, to illuminate the patterns in your life. The first step is always awareness. By simply asking, why? You've already begun the journey of dismantling those walls and stepping toward the connection you truly deserve. End of part 3. Hello everyone, I'm Jan Hong. I'm from Vietnam. Thank you so much for your support. It truly means a great deal to me and is a huge source of encouragement. See you in part 4.